I was behind the cot, wedged next to the toilet, when the world ended. Nobody warned me it would sound like this. Not sirens, not screaming, not at first. I'd been accused of something I didn't do and given 15 years at the state prison. It didn't matter now. The court that mattered had teeth. It began with a guy dropping dead in my unit. I thought somebody got green lit. I heard commotion, came out of my cell, and saw my cellie lying on the floor, not moving. When I looked around, there wasn't another person near him. Then I heard a loud thud above me, and 2 more guys fell dead on the tier above. I looked to the pod control to see a guard staring down at the unit, talking on the phone. 2 more guards had come to the gate, waiting for it to be open, weapons at the ready. But as if ordered, they backed away from the gate. Nobody knew what was going on. If this was a hit, then you stay out of it. But if someone just dropped dead, you stay away, or the guards might think you were behind it. Either way, no one made a move. And then my cellie stood up with a jerky, uncoordinated, and stiff movements, looked at the nearest guy, charged him, and bit right into him. Guy stepped back, unwilling to get involved, ready to pull their shanks. And then the 2 who died above me got up, and chaos ensued. I pulled back into my cell, back behind my bed, watching what might be called a riot, but was instead a slaughter. Rival gangs fought together against something I realized later were zombies. The sound of yelling and fighting was quickly drowned out by the prison sirens, but not before I heard more yelling come from the nearby units. A full day passed like that. I chose to hide, listening. My cell door was cracked open halfway, and every instinct told me to slam it shut, but a closed door makes noise, and noise brings them. I kept my hand off it and let it hang there half open, and prayed nothing decided to look inside. When night came, I didn't sleep. I couldn't have slept if someone paid me. The unit itself quieted down, but everywhere else didn't. Something was happening in the yard. Something was happening in the next building over. Screaming that cut off, too fast. Metal on metal. A sound I still can't name, and don't want to. By morning, my legs were cramped and my mouth was dry as chalk. The noise at the east gate started up again, something that stirred up the infected congregating there. This could be chance, while their attention was elsewhere. I decided I had to move. I got halfway to the door when 3 bodies dropped from the upper tier right there in front of my cell and hit the floor in a heap of limbs and sound. I was back behind the cot trying to stay still. 2 of them started crawling toward the door and on the other end of the unit, on hands that didn't quite work right anymore, dragging legs that worked even less. The 3rd one didn't move at all, just lay there, facing my cell, eyes open. I watched that one for a long time, waiting for it to blink, waiting for it to move, but it never did. When I finally went for the door again, I kept my eyes locked on the dead zombie the whole way, and made it to the door and looked out. The infected were down the unit now, fighting with dozens of other zombies for a spot stacked against the security gate that led to the next unit. Somewhere past that, I thought I heard fighting, boots, and grunting. I might not be the only one still alive. The other direction, however, the unit led to a connecting door standing wide open into a unit I couldn't see. So I stepped quietly along the floor, close to the cells, looking back at the frenzied mass trying to break through the door. The cell door I passed behind shifted slightly, making a sudden noise, but only loud enough I could hear. My whole body went cold, certain something was back there. When I spun around, the cell was empty. Nothing but a striped mattress and a spider making conversation with the windowsill. After that, I checked nearly every cell before I passed it, Every single one. And I kept glancing back down the hall, counting the many zombies, making sure they were still locked where I left them. The next unit over told its own story. Blood on the floor, in a pattern that told me someone had been dragged and not walked. Every cell door and every tier stood open. The control room had its window blown clean out, glass all over the console inside. Only one zombie was in there, pressed up against the closed cell door, arms shoved through the bars up to the shoulder, reaching for whatever was still alive on the other side. It never looked away from the door, never noticed me. So I checked behind me first, nothing coming through from my unit, and I started searching, quiet as I could, along the base of the tier. 2 months inside, I never once made a shank, never needed to, at least not yet. I told myself, keep my head down, do my time, stay out of it. I would have given anything at that moment for 6 inches of sharpened shoe toothbrush. Wrapped in a torn sock, I found a crude metal shank crusted with old blood and worse, lying near an open cell door. I didn't know whose it was or what happened to them. I reached down and picked it up with the sock scraping the floor loud enough that the zombie's head snapped around. It looked right at me. Whatever was behind those eyes, hunger was the only word big enough for it. For a few seconds, it was tangled in the bars, and something in me almost laughed. The way you laugh at a nightmare you know isn't real. But this isn't a nightmare. Then it wasn't tangled anymore, and it came at me like it had been fired out of a cannon. I thought about every zombie movie I ever half watched on TV. One thought made it clear as a bell, the head. Go for the head. It closed the distance fast. I swung the felt shank, punched through the eye socket, and the whole thing dropped like a string got cut. But the noise carried, and I could hear them answering from my unit, and I had nowhere to run. But a voice came from the cell, the one the dead thing had been reaching into, told me to get to the control room and hit the emergency door release to close the gate. So I dove in. Glass crunched under my shoes. I stared at the board of buttons I couldn't understand, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Hurry up, he said. The middle one. Closer to a shout now, because the things were almost in the unit. I didn't trust myself to hit the right one, so I hit every button on the panel. Every cell door in the unit rolled shut at once. The main door into the unit slammed down last. The things hit it from the other side hard enough to shake dust off the frame, but still it held. Then the voice called out again, asking me for help. I went to a cell and pulled on the door, but I forgot I just locked it with all the others. Through the bars, I saw a guard on the floor, gripping a knee swollen up tight against his pant leg, blood soaked through the fabric around it. I knew his face before I knew his name. Kessler. The guard you prayed didn't work your tier. The one who ran contraband for a cut and beat men in laundry rooms where the cameras didn't reach. You help me, and I help you get out, he said. Looking at his injury, I asked him straight up, were you bit? He came back to me and said, if I was bit, I'd already be one of them. You need to go back into that room and open the door, just this one. But I didn't move. I thought about every story I heard about him. The ones I believed and the ones I wanted to believe were exaggerated. I know the back halls, Kessler said. Staff corridors. It's the only way either one of us walks out of this building alive. Well, what did I have to lose? Everything, probably. I went back to the control room while the unit gate shuddered under the weight of everything trying to get through it. I searched the panel for the cell number, double-checked with the guard, and pressed the button. His door rolled open. Kessler moved slowly beside me, favoring the bad knee, dragging it at half a step behind with every stride. Left, he kept saying. Left, then the door with the red tape. We turned a corner, and two infected in the hall, staff uniform shredded, moved with that broken stop-start stagger. Kessler didn't say anything, but spotted a bloodied baton on the concrete, knelt quietly, and picked it up. I got ready to fight. I didn't have the shank anymore. Doubt Kessler would have let me keep it. So I squared up, waiting for it to go down. Kessler closed the distance at his own pace, favoring the knee, unbothered, like he was walking to clock in for a shift. The baton came up almost lazy. He put the first one down with 2 strikes to the skull, short and economical, no wasted motion. The second one grabbed for his sleeve, and he drove the end of the baton into its throat, stepped past it while I was still trying to figure out how to fall, and finished it on the ground without breaking stride. "You good?" he asked, not even looking back at me, already moving again. I stood there for a second longer than I meant to, staring at what was left in the hallway, and felt more fear toward him than anything else I had seen that day. "Keep up," he said. Medical was worse than the unit we had just been in. Gurneys on their sides, a doctor's coat on the floor, empty, like the person had stepped out of it mid-stride. A closed door stood off to one side, small wire glass window blacked out with blood. As we passed it, something bumped against it, low and soft. I couldn't see in, but I didn't need to. I imagined how things must have fell apart in there. I've heard out-of-control inmates can get strapped down so staff can work on them. In my mind, I saw a doctor or maybe a nurse die, then turn and attack the others while the inmate was strapped down and helpless. Kessler barely glanced at it, didn't slow down. Whatever was behind the door didn't raise a second thought from him. Past medical, we stepped in front of an unmarked door, keypad dark and dead. "Step back," he said, not looking at me. "Why?" I asked. "Because I said so." He had the baton in his hand again, and he tapped it once against his own leg, casual, like he was reminding me it was there. "You want to argue this with me, right now, in here? You go ahead and see how that works out for you." So I stepped back. He punched a code into the dead keypad, out of habit, muttered something under his breath when nothing happened. He looked at it for a moment, grunted, then turned to continue walking. "What was back there?" I asked as we went. "Guns. Would have been nice," he said as he pushed off the wall. "But not today. We probably don't want guns. Staying quiet is probably staying alive." "Sally Port," he said. "End of this hall, then right. It's how deliveries come in. Chain link, then a real gate. If it's still manned, we're 2 dead men walking up on armed guards, so we go slow." The hall spat us out into a loading dock, cold air, hitting me for the first time in what felt like a year instead of a day. A guard was already out there, back against the support post, breathing too fast. A sidearm hung loose in his hand like he'd forgotten it was there. Blood had soaked through one sleeve where the cuff should have been covering his wrist, and the skin around it had gone a color I didn't like. The guard saw us, and the gun came up halfway, shaking. "Kessler? Is that you?" he asked. Then his eyes found me, saw the orange jumpsuit, and the gun swung around my way instead, steadier now than it had been a second ago. "The hell is he doing loose?" Get on the ground. Get on the ground now or I put you down. Easy, Kessler said. We're getting out. Same as you. The guard's eyes kept sliding off us, off the room, focusing somewhere that wasn't there. Sweat cut clean tracks through the dirt on his face. Even the dark was cold enough to see my breath. Hey, I kept my voice low, nodding at his arm. Did you get bit? It's fine, he said. It was Jones. He lost it. He went after me, but I got away. I'm fine. But he was talking too fast, words running together, the gun wavering lower with every sentence, like his arm didn't know what he wanted to do with it. Kessler didn't say another word. He was already moving, unhurried, the same pace he used on the two others in the corridor, closing the distance while the guard was still talking himself into his own story. The baton caught him once across his temple before the gum ever came level, and he went down against the post and didn't get back up. I stood there in the cold with my heart going fast, staring at a dead man in a uniform with no face left. Kessler crouched, checked the man's belt, came up with a set of keys and the sidearm both. He checked the mag, tucked the gun into his waistband, and stood back up. Let's move, he said. The Sallyport gate stood open, both sides, swinging slightly on a breeze that smelled like outside air. Past that was a paved lot, and beyond that, a road running off into trees growing orange with early morning light. Kessler caught his balance against the gatepost and stopped there, half in and half out, and looked back at me instead of ahead. This is where a road ends, he said. You did me a favor. I'm doing you one back. I'm letting you walk. Once we clear that lot, you go your way, I go mine, and we're square. But you remember my face same as I remember yours. You cross it again, I won't remember today. I'll just see you as an inmate who got loose. Do we understand each other? We're good, I said, and no hesitation in it. He held my eyes a beat longer, like he was deciding whether to believe me or not, then turned and limped out through the gate, heading down the road without waiting to see which way I went. Behind me was a building full of men I spent trapped in, learning not to turn my back on. I used to think that place held the worst thing that could ever happen to me, but the worst was yet to come.